So this swimmer sent his video in, and the first angle we'll look at here is from the side. Now, what we like to see is head, hips, and heels at the surface, and you can see that the legs are just dropping down slightly there. So what we'd want to work towards is just getting those legs up a little bit. Now, I think for this swimmer, probably the biggest cause of this body position here, not that it's slowing him down a lot, but it's certainly it'll certainly add up. The biggest contributor to this is probably just his head position. So, there's a range of where we want to look when we're swimming, but from what I can see in these videos here is quite often, every couple of strokes, he ends up just looking a little bit too far forward. So if you look at that position there, it's not the greatest quality video, but you can see it there. His eyes are all the way forwards, and if you look at the alignment through the spine and then the head, it's quite a stark contrast there between the two. So we want to try and just keep the eyes down a little bit more, because you can see here, all right, the head goes from somewhat being down, all right, and this alignment through the spine looks a lot better. Then as soon as that head comes up too far, right there you can see that the legs just start to drop a bit, and you can see this curve through the body. So head position, we pretty much want to just keep the eyes fixed somewhere down or slightly forwards out in front, as long as we keep the crown of the head out of the water. So just that top part of the head out, keep the head in pretty much the same position, unless you're going to turn your head to breathe, in which case you're going to turn your head to the side, but come straight back. Now, you'll see with some swimmers, they will move up and down slightly. So they might look here and they might look there. They might move it back and forth slightly, but not much. The head's like the steering wheel for the rest of your body. So if it's moving around, if it's looking all over the place, then the body will often follow with it. And in swimming, we want to try and keep a fairly stable core. So a bit of tautness through the core, and swimming from the inside out, which means if we can keep that stability and tautness through the core, then it's much easier to connect our arms, our legs, and just have everything work nicely. Whereas if we are looking up and down and moving our head around too much, it's very hard to keep this stable. So it's very hard to connect those or sync those things up. This swimmer actually does quite a good job of his timing. So you can see here in terms of the timing of the stroke, this looks really good. So out here, all right, he could probably get a bit more extension with this arm. To me, that looks like the elbow is just a little bit bent. He probably needs to reach a bit further out there. But you can see he's rotated his hips here to possibly 30 degrees. All right, shoulders look like they're rotated to about 40. This is looking good. And then you can see he kicks down with this left foot. This arm begins the catch phase, gets him to initiate that roll to the other side. And then as he's pressing back past his hip, you can just see the hips are starting to rotate to the other side there. So if you just watch it from this general side view, you can see there's quite nice timing of the stroke. So it's like he's really swimming from his hips or from his core, or with his whole body in a way. So you can see he's very, very effective with it there. Now, there's probably two key things aside from head position I'd focus on if I were this swimmer. And the first one will just be the catch. Now, for the most part, he's got a really good setup of the catch. So what we want to see from here is out at full extension, we want the fingers below the wrist below the elbow. So in pretty much that sort of angle that he's at, that's good. Then we want the fingertips to be pointing down to the bottom of the pool, which he does. You can see right here he's just in a high elbow catch position, which just means essentially if we were to draw a line through the shoulder to the hand, right, this elbow is going to be just above that line, which you can see. So nice high elbow catch position there, which he does pretty well, and he moves through well with that left arm. Then in this right side, similar thing, sets himself up well. Nice initial setup there. The fingertips are pointing down. All right, he's in this high elbow catch position there. That's excellent. But then you can just see here, he probably pulls through at that elbow a little bit too soon. So when he's underneath the body, his shoulder and his elbow line up. It's great, but the hand's out in front instead of having the fingers pointing down and having the shoulder, elbow, and hand line up together. Now, the reason we want to try and get everything lining up is, my friend Danny Jones says, it's like one happy family. So you've got essentially the forearm and the hand is pressing back at a better angle. If it were like this, it'd be pressing directly back. So for the most part, we want to try and get the shoulder, elbow, and hand all to line up underneath the shoulder there. So that's what we'd sort of work towards, is just that last part of the catch where he just has that tendency to pull through a little bit too soon with the elbow, which you can see about here. All right, so that'll probably take, I'd give that at least 6 to 8 weeks of practice, going through some specific drills with that phase of the stroke, with keeping in mind that the better swimmers don't necessarily pull with more force; they're just more effective with the movement pattern. So you don't necessarily need to pull through with a lot of power, particularly in this first part of the stroke. You just need to try and be as effective as possible with the movement of the arm and the pull pattern. And I think if we can just improve this movement from basically here to here and avoid this elbow pulling through so soon, for this swimmer, that's probably going to make quite a bit of difference. Now, the other thing that I can see here is the exit of the stroke. To me, I think it's just a little bit short. You can see where he comes out. It's at about the hip there. Now, it could be all right. It could be far enough, but what I see with most top swimmers is going back just a little bit further than that. Doesn't need to be much, but probably just pressing back a little bit further past the hip. And the right side, hard to say, but again, probably just a little bit short. So often that press back past the hip can work in conjunction with a bit more reach and extension out the front. So those two things work hand in hand.